Long, long ago, in the dark ages of programming, everyone programmed by themselves. Developers used to create a number of different files of source code, and it didn't matter because they were all on their own systems. But slowly the teams grew, and people had to swap source files. So when Alice created a new source file, she would email it to Jane. Jane would then make modifications and send it back to Alice so she could have an up-to-date copy. If Alice made another file, she was prompt enough to send it to Jane, so Jane could make her own copy, and then Jane again was prompt enough to send the updates back to Alice. But then Praveen started writing some code, and he decided he needed to email the files across too. So he sent an email to Jane and to Alice. Alice also needed to ensure that Praveen had all of the other up-to-date files, so she sent them to him by email as well. And when Jane made changes to her files, she had to send some of her files to Praveen as well. And then Praveen again made some changes to his files and emailed them to Jane, and then again to Alice. Confused? If this wasn't enough, 2 new people joined the team, and you can imagine the chaos that followed. There's got to be a better way to do this, isn't there? This is where source control comes to the rescue. Instead of emailing files back and forth, developers now use a source repository. When Jane makes changes to her code, she commits her changes to the repository instead of emailing them to the team. Alice can get these changes from the repository by just updating her local copy with the latest version of the code. When Alice makes changes, she commits them to the source repository. When Praveen starts writing code, he can just update his version of the code with Alice's changes. When he's done making his changes, all he does is commit it to the source control repository, and it's ready for Jane, Alice, or for that matter, any other new team member to see. By being a mediator between the developers, source control systems make it easy for developers to share files amongst themselves. Most modern source control systems also have version control built in, so teams can go to specific versions of their code just in case they encounter the need. So that solves the problem of sharing files. Life isn't all that simple though. One day when Jane is checking in some code and the application's configuration file, she accidentally makes a mistake. She puts in a reference to a path on her personal desktop. As you can see, the configuration file has a reference to a folder on Jane's D drive. Well, who cares? She just checks them in for now. A week later, though, when Alice updates her local version, she's thoroughly confused. The application just doesn't seem to work. Alice spends hours trying to make the application work, but she just can't. She completely misses the incorrect configuration file. Alice just doesn't like this one bit. You can see that, can't you? Can you imagine this problem on a project? Try imagining it on large projects with a number of people working on a complex code base. Things can get quite nasty. Now let's consider an alternative solution. Jane finishes her feature and checks in the incorrect configuration file to the source repository. The servers are still the same, except there's a little continuous integration server running at the same time. So a few minutes later, the continuous integration server detects the changes, it compiles the code, it runs the unit tests, and it tries to integrate the application. But it can't. The configuration file is wrong, so it turns red and raises an alarm. Jane realizes there's a problem, so she tries to investigate what's wrong. She realizes that the server can't find the files on its D drive. No wonder, that location exists only on Jane's computer. So Jane proceeds to fix the build by making the minor change. And as you might expect, a few minutes later, she checks in her code. Once that's done, a few minutes later, the continuous integration server compiles the code, it runs the unit tests, and then turns green to show that all is well. Now, not only everyone on the team is happy, Jane is happy because she knows that her work is usable and will not cause stress to others. At ThoughtWorks, we use continuous integration on all our projects, and we understand that while source control makes sharing files easy, integrating continuously creates happy developers by having a clean machine and helps us have fewer late nights and a lot less stress. So that is source control and continuous integration for you.